I really wanted to do this series on lessons on love just for today's video alone. Today I'm going to talk about what is the most important love style, dare I say the one God fully intended. Today I'm going to talk about the agapic love style, or agape. Don't laugh at me if I didn't pronounce it right, because I said agape for many years. Who knows, right? I'm not Greek. But all these love styles in this society where love is so confusing. Love is love. Oh, just love one another. I love shoes. I love ice cream. I love my spouse. This whole series, I hope, have shown you that how love is from one person to another is so different, and the English language is so lacking. But when Jesus talks to us about loving one another, I'm sure we should be doing many of them, but I can't love my enemies. I can't eros my enemy, which is a romantic love. I don't even want to storge my enemies because storge is that companionate type of love. I definitely don't want to ludus my enemies because that's a playful game playing type of love. So as I went through what these different loves and the different meanings, what could Christ have meant? And agape is the one that I believe Christ most perfectly exemplifies in the Bible. Because agape love style is one that is compassionate and unconditional. So when we think about this love style, we can, in fact, love one another. We can, in fact, love our enemies. Because I'm supposed to have compassion on my enemies, I'm supposed to love them with no conditions, regardless of how they treat me. Now, I'd like to give you a great example. So we had this fantastic example in class once. For those of you that didn't know, I used to teach college courses before I really got hot and heavy into this. And for over a decade, I loved teaching about this course, communication and close relationships. And we talked about love. And as this series was being discussed, we got to agape. And I said to them, loving without conditions means you don't really even have to be loved back. The object of your love does not even need to know that you are, quote unquote, loving them. So this very powerful conversation broke out in class once. And the assignment came up to say, all right, I'd like you all to go home and agape somebody. I'd like you to go and love them without conditions, so they can't know. So the whole point is, when we agape, it's all about giving and not about receiving at all. So when I'm loving someone else, I'm often waiting for them to tell me, oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. But this was a love style that I said, no, I want you to go and love them without them knowing. Do something good for them. So the students had to go love somebody and then write a paper and come back to class, and we talked about the things that they did. And they talked about, I cleaned my roommate's bedroom for her. I washed my dad's car for him. I did these things. And then they also, part of the assignment was to say, what was the reaction of the other? And it was really, really awesome hearing the stories of all these different things that came back, right? They were just like, oh, wow, thanks. And why'd you do that? It's like, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it, right? So they had to not tell them it was for an assignment. So the conversation in class kept building, and to where someone said something to the effect of I don't honestly remember how we got to this part, but the part we got to is agape. True agape is not just about loving the people that you like. It's about loving your enemies. It's about loving those you don't like. And so I, after this fantastic conversation, said, okay, here's your assignment. I want you to find someone who you don't like, who has hurt you, someone who may not like you, someone who just makes you want to go, ugh, every time you see them. I want you to love them. I want you to agape them. I know one guy in the back of class is like, dude, I'm out, and because you're only getting a 10-minute video, but we had, an hour-long conversation and development of this concept. It was one of the most powerful classes ever that I have taught. and witnessed the examples that were coming through. Remember, they still couldn't tell the person who they were loving that they were loving them. They had to do something. And so I remember stories such as one girl said, yeah, my roommate stole from me. And she used to take my money, and she used to just do these things. She just ruined my relationships, and we haven't spoken. I personally just can't stand her for what she did. So she went out and did something for her. I cannot remember. I think she was the one that said she had a bill that she had to pay. Now, again, this is years ago, so forgive me if I don't remember. But she went and paid that bill of that person. Person never knew it was her. 70, 80 bucks, whatever it was. Never knew it was her. Part of this agape love assignment was you may not get their response. You may not know. How does it make you feel? So what did you do? What response, if any, did you get from the other person? And how did it make you feel? I'll tell you about the responses later. But there was another that had a friendship. Remember, college students. And let me go to something even better. There was one girl in the course where she and her father had an affair. Her father fathered the child with the mistress. So let's just say this girl in my class, her name is Angela. So Angela now had a half-sister, let's say Sarah. But she didn't want a relationship with Sarah because every time she looked at Sarah, every time she'd think of Sarah, it brought her pain. It reminded her of, you are a reminder of the hurt that my dad brought to this family. Now, Sarah knew about Angela. Angela knew about Sarah. And they were within 3 years, 2-3 years of age. And Sarah was always asking Angela if she wanted to hang out, if she wanted to do anything. And Angela would ignore her requests, would say no, would come up with excuses. She wasn't mean, but she just didn't want to do it. So for this assignment, she reached out to Sarah. And she said, hey, you want to go get a latte? And Sarah was like, yeah, I would love to. So they showed up and they ended up having a latte together. They went shopping, and Angela actually came back and said, I rather like Sarah. She's a really nice person. And I just realized she had her own hurts because here I was, I got to grow up with her dad and she didn't get to grow up with dad, and she just wanted her sister. So it was a really good relationship in that example. Another girl came and said she had a boss, and her boss and she didn't get along. Her boss was actually just nasty to her. And she went and cleaned out her boss's office, and she organized files. She did all these great things, and her boss came back the next day and she was like, did you do this? She's like, yeah, I just knew it needed to get, why'd you do it? Well, it needed to get done. I knew you're busy. And that transformed that relationship. That boss was all of a sudden doing nicer things. And again, this was years ago. But I do remember how this particular student was like, just agapeing my boss, who was nasty to me, changed her completely. Then I had another guy in class, and he said, that stuff doesn't work. It did the same thing. I had a boss that's a jerk, and I agape'd him, and I don't remember what he did. He said, but he's still a jerk. He's still doing mean things. And I was like, but remember, true agape is not about what you get back. It's about the fact that you gave without them knowing. One last one before I get to a really important one is I had another student, a young man. His dad was in prison, and he didn't like visiting his dad in prison. He loved his dad, but he was embarrassed by it. He just was angry. He hadn't visited his dad in years. So this time he decided to go and visit his dad. And similarly, it was a really good visit. I can't say that his heart softened completely that day, but he said, I'm going to do it again. I realized that to love my dad, of course, from conversations we were having in class, to love my dad, maybe that's going to help make him a better person. I don't know, but it was something I needed to do. A lot of you watching this are divorced, separated, your spouse is having an affair. A lot of you have an estranged family member, have been hurt dearly by other people in your life. And you've locked up your heart, you've put a wall around it. But those are the ones, I would dare say most, that Jesus said when he said, love your enemies. He probably used the word agape. Actually, it was Greek. He wasn't using Greek. But the word Jesus was using was a word that meant unconditional. Love one another as I have loved you. And how did he love us? He washed our feet when we would do nasty things. He washed Judas's feet when Judas had already paid 30 pieces of silver to have him condemned. Loving without conditions means taking your spouse back, perhaps, when everyone else is telling you to lose the loser because he or she cheated on you. And even if you never have intentions of getting back, how can you love your ex, or that person that hurt you, or that sibling that did something mean at mom and dad's funeral, hurt the family? How can you love them? They don't have to know you're doing it. Remember, agape is about not getting something back, at least not loving for the sake of getting something back. It's loving thinking you'll never get anything back. Pay a bill, write a letter saying how much you forgive them. Maybe washing their car. Maybe, I can't even think of good examples. Inviting him or her over for Thanksgiving dinner when you vowed you'd never let him into your life. What would Jesus really want you to do? Right now, I'd like you to think about that person that makes you cringe, that person you loathe. You know where I'm going with this. I'd like you to think about what can you do to love that person. Because our rewards in heaven are proportionate to our love on earth. Anyone can love the people that make life easier. How hard is it to love your spouse who divorced you, who married the other man or the other woman? How can you love them? What action can you do? Praying perhaps for them? Praying perhaps for the greatest blessings for the other woman or the other man? Because remember, when you pray for blessings for them, that doesn't mean, oh, they're going to be even closer to your husband or your wife. Praying for the other woman or the other man, God bless that person. Well, that can only bring them closer to God's mission for them, which certainly isn't with your spouse. How can you agape somebody? Love with no conditions at all. No conditions. Even if what you get back is a metaphorical slap in the face. Even if you think in the eyes of the world that backfired, he's still a jerk. What would Jesus think? You still loved him. You still agape'd him. Even though the response wasn't good, and I'm proud of you. Heck, that's what my standers do all the time. Our standing community is one where we practice agape love. How can we love without conditions this person who's left us and hurt us so badly? And you know what? That's why we've had nearly 20 reconciliations. A lot of times these people hadn't really known true love before that. Yeah, we had romantic love. Yeah, we had pragma. Yeah, we had lettuce and all these other types of love. But when the jilted lover loves the prodigal, despite the prodigal's behaviors towards them, that makes them scratch their head. It makes them look up. Why'd she do that? Why'd he do that? Because you know what's happening? The light of Christ is shining through you. And that is extremely attractive. And it's not just your prodigal that sees you. It's other people. They may be calling their ex a jerk, and you stay silent or say good things, or find out that your prodigal who divorced you 4 years ago is sick and you drive over some soup. I'd like you to be better at agapeing people, because that's what Christ calls us to do. Agape one another as I have agape you. Let me know if this helps. Let me know what you practice. Let me know your thoughts on who it is you're planned to agape. It can change the world. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you liked what you've seen. I hope you enjoyed this informational bacon bit. Find me at breakfastwithbacon.com. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon, and I want to remind you always to live your life sunny side up.